What time did you wake up today? What time did you want to wake up today? What time do you normally wake up? Today, I'd love to talk to you about a topic that has changed my life. Waking up before 6 a.m. was one of the biggest positive changes I have made to my day and therefore to my life. It actually started with me spending some time in India. We were supposed to start our classes at 6 a.m. And I started waking up at 5:30, and I found myself rushing to the class. And I just didn't like the feeling of this kind of, I didn't have that time for myself. And I started waking up a little bit early. So I started waking up at 5. I realized I quite like that moment for myself. I quite like reading a book before starting my class. And I started waking up even earlier at 4:30. Now, it's really easy to do so in a country where the daylight is between 10 to 14 hours, which is the case in India and some of the other countries located in around the equator, but not that easy in countries like Northern Europe. So this is something that I'm still on the journey to navigate. Today, I'm welcoming you to an episode of On Emergence, a podcast on what it takes to be a human being. I know it probably was triggering to some of you. It's like, how can I wake up? It's too early. 6 a.m. is way too early. Maybe it's too early to the current version of you. Maybe it's too early to some people who normally wake up at 9 and their body clock works that way, that 9 a.m. is the optimal time. But the thing is, have you ever tried? Have you ever tried waking up in the morning before the world wakes up and having that time for yourself? Experiencing the morning quietness before the sunrise is one of the biggest gifts that I give myself every day. It is the time for myself that I notice in the day when I wake up at 6, actually 6 on the dot, it's too late for me. Unless I wake up around 5 o'clock, I feel that my day is not really mine. I already wake up into this rush of the day because I have my morning ritual. I wake up in the morning, I do my meditation, I do my yoga practice or any other form of physical exercise. And that I usually follow with a cup of hot drink. Oftentimes it is a cup of cacao, and I sit down and journal. That ritual takes me about hour and a half, 2 hours every morning, which is why it's important for me to wake up before 6 o'clock, because if I wake up any later than that, it means that I start working my emails around 8:30. So by the time that I get to work, I get to the co-working space or I open my laptop, to me, it feels already quite late. One of the beautiful things is coming into a space where people are usually working when this space is empty. And as you begin to do your own work, taking your emails, you slowly start observing that space filling up with other people. But by showing up early, you kind of make this space your own. You're slowly lending into it. You're welcoming the energy of the new people coming into it rather than walking into it. So this is one of the ways to look at showing up to the office early. I make my own hours, so I'm really fortunate in that. But I actually do like showing up in my co-working space around 8:30, and that is before majority of people show up. And by slowly seeing and saying hello to people as they enter, I feel that I already created my own bubble, my own rhythm. And when I'm walking into that space, I'm not walking into the energy that's already been created by the people that are already in the office. So this is one way to look at it. Now, going back to the topic of waking up before 6 a.m. In yoga, it is known as Brahma Muhurta time. And this is a special time before sunrise that is advised to spend in practices like meditation, prayer, in yoga asana practice or journaling, anything that is introspective, anything that invites that clarity. What is so mind-boggling for me is that this gift is available to me every single day, apart from the days when I wake up late. And that's another thing that I'm learning to do, is to deal with the disappointment of waking up quote unquote late. And for me, I already shared it as past 6 a.m. The thing is, you may feel resistance around the idea of waking up before 6 a.m. Maybe you said, well, I don't function well in the morning. If you were to look at it as a habit to cultivate and then explore how you feel after 3 weeks of doing it, it's a total of 21 days. A lot of sources quote that you need 21 days of continuous repetition in order to make something a habit. So if you are resolving yourself to wake up before 6 a.m., do it for 21 days. An important thing to mention is that the 5 or 6 a.m. day starts with the evening before. So you cannot have that same beautiful early wake up without feeling groggy if you didn't go to bed at the time that allows you to rest. So if I know that I want to go back to my routine of waking up between 4 and 5, I need to be in bed around 10 p.m. the latest. And it does shape my life. It does dictate what is it that I do in the evening. It does dictate how late am I staying out. And that's the reason why this habit can be so life-changing, because you start observing that actually the most creative time that you have is in the morning. And if you're a little bit mindful, you start comparing, well, what kind of quality time that I have with myself first thing in the morning when I wake up before 6 a.m. versus the time that I spend in the evening. If you are scrolling mindlessly, and there's another episode on mindless scrolling that I shared, but if you are finding yourself in the evening trying to make up for the time that you didn't have during the day, this is something to look at. So it is at the quality time that you're spending with yourself when you're staying up until 12, until 1 o'clock in the evening. Are you being creative? Are you doing and working on something that inspires you? And if the answer is yes, I know some people who are incredibly creative and they work well deep into the night and they wake up late, but this is their creative time. They're actually mindful about the fact that they're creating something amazing in those evening hours. But most of the people I speak to, they don't actually do a lot of quality creative work in those late hours. And including the people who are staying up late that I know are creative, they always say that they're incapable to wake up early, that they're just not a morning person. My question to it is, well, have you tried? Have you tried it consistently? And the reason why it is so hard is it invites redesign and redevelopment of your life. It means that moving your commitments that you normally do in the evenings to a little bit earlier in the evening so you can go to bed in the time that would allow you sufficient rest for you to wake up before 6 a.m. But that gift of waking up early is something that is worth gifting yourself and exploring if this is the gift that you'd like to have in your life. Personally, I know that when I'm consistently waking up after 6 a.m., I feel that I'm not being my full self. I'm not being creative. I don't have the headspace in my mind to be with myself, to observe my creativity during the day that follows. If there's one quick fix in my life, it is wake up early. If I've been feeling unfulfilled, if I feel empty, if I feel anxious, if I feel all those things, one of the first things that I look at is what time I've been waking up lately. And if the answer is past 6 a.m., I have my answer. That would be the very first thing I would change in my life. And then I see how it translates into how I feel about my day that follows. Now, another bonus that I'd like to invite your attention to is the time that you buy by waking up early. So personally for me is that I know that I am not creative whatsoever between hours of 2 to 4 p.m. In the afternoon, it's just the sun, the light is too bright for me. It's too noisy. There's just so much energy going on that I find it overwhelming. So this is the time that I normally go to the gym, or I go take an exercise class, or I call a friend, I call my mom. I don't try to force myself to do something just because everybody else around me is doing it, just because everybody else around me is working. And this is interesting because friends of mine who start early, they start their working day with a full-time job at 7:30, and that allows them to be productive, to finish their work in a shorter amount of time, and it also allows them to finish their day early. It creates space to do the things that really inspires them. A very close and dear friend of mine, he starts his day at 7:30 at work. This is when he shows up in the office. And he finishes his day around 2:30, 3 o'clock. So that means that he actually reduces the interaction with people that otherwise would be distracting to his work, and that enables him to create better work in those hours that he is in the office. And it creates this beautiful space for him to pursue his passion, which is climbing. Now, he's not quitting his work anytime soon because this process of waking up early is something that he has arrived to as a result of a burnout. So he figured that interacting with people is the biggest energy drain for him. In a year's break that he went through, he realized that it is the interaction with certain people that drains him. And as a result of it, this is the change that he implemented when he did go back to work. He starts his day at 7:30, he works until 3 o'clock the latest. He finishes his work, he delivers beautiful work, he is in the film industry, and he then goes on and pursues his other hobbies and interests like climbing, like breath work, and just spending time with me and his other friends. So I'm really happy about this because I also start my days early and also like finishing early, and I have time in the afternoon to see him, to catch up with him. And in that sense, this change of waking up and starting your day early invites different types of interaction in your life. Now, I know that there are people listening to podcasts who have families, who have kids, and they have a different rhythm. So it is up to you to understand how waking up early fit into your routine, how actually you can sync your daily cycle to that of your family. So for example, if your partner is unwilling to wake up early before 6 a.m., you can actually treat it as the time for yourself that you don't otherwise get because you're so consumed in the interaction with your partner or interaction with your kids is that you don't get that time for yourself. And it could also be a possibility of you doing the morning chores for your family and your partner doing the evening chores for the family. And this way you have the separate times for yourself rather than always spending that time in each other's space. And be mindful about the time that you do end up spending together. The time that you end up spending together becomes mindful and something that you plan and doing intentionally rather than taking your partner for granted just because you wake up at the same time. So this is another train of thought that I'd like to explore further in other episodes. For now, I am really, really curious to hear about your daily routine. So leave a comment below. I hope that you are watching it on YouTube and you're subscribed to the channel. And I also invite you to share your thoughts and struggles around designing your morning routine. Is there anything that I can support you on? Is there anything that the community can support you on? Is there any beautiful lessons that you have learned? If you're one of those people who wake up before 6 a.m. consistently for the last few years, please make yourself known and be open about it. By opening about it, that this is who you are, it invites other people to step into the same space. It invites people to start exploring the journey as well. I invite you to share your experience. I invite you to also connect with me on Instagram, and the handle is On Emergence. Please also subscribe to the newsletter via the website onemergence.com. I'm Laura Sagen, your host and a fellow human being.